Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Things I've Learned from Barry Harris. Today I thought it would be nice to maybe get a little more in detail about certain things. So for the first episode we did a blues, I think it was in C. So instead of just talking about the scales for the blues, we'll try to get into the way that Barry looks at things, or the way that I interpret that he looks at things in terms of the first 4 bars. So the first 4 bars of the blues, we did the scales. We said it was C7 up, F7 up, and then C7 up and down. Okay, so those can be the scales for your basic 4-bar blues. 12-bar blues, but just the first 4 bars. But there are a lot of other movements that go on that the piano player is playing, that other saxophone players are playing when they solo over it. Bird, Coleman Hawkins, all those great players have played what's called movements, what Barry refers to as movements, which is what you're trying to do as a soloist. So to give you an example, the first example would be to just play some phrases for C7, play some phrases for F7, and then back to C7 again. So that's an example of one movement. Let's just do that. So if we say 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that was the first 4 bars. Now let's talk about what's other movements that you can play there. The first thing that maybe we can look at is Barry talks about the tritone. So the rule for the tritone is this: you can play a dominant scale, a tritone or a flat fifth, or 3 whole steps away from the chord that you're playing, as long as it's going home a fourth higher. So in this case, we're playing C7. We're going home, what he calls home, a 4th higher to F7. So if that's the case, we can play, if we were going to look at the scales, we could play C7, F7, and C7 up. Now F sharp 7 up. So I'll play those again. C7, F7, C7, F sharp 7. Now you're back to, which is the 5th and 6th bar. But anyway, so now if you were going to try to solo using those, let me see if I could do 1, 2, 1. So I use the the F sharp 7 to get back to F7. So there's an example of using that. Another movement that he uses, and of course I'm just trying to show you these fast, there's a million different ways to approach it. The next movement is, sometimes you hear the bass player play. So you'll hear him play. That's a very important movement. And what Barry says that movement is it's C major, C7, what would be F major, and then F minor, or how he would refer to it, because he always refers to it from the dominant, you could say the flat 7 dominant, which in this case, in this key, would be B flat 7. So the way that you would practice that is practice moving from, let's say, the 1, then to the flat 7th, to the 3rd of the 4 major, and then to the flat 3rd of the 4 minor, or the 7th of the flat 7 dominant. So when he thinks, in this instance, F minor 7, he's thinking, the scale that he's thinking of is usually B flat 7 scale. So let's try to do something with that. So let's see, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. And I even threw in the tritone. But anyway, that's playing a movement. That's playing 1 to 1 dominant, to 4 major to 4 minor, or to 4 major to flat 7 dominant. Those are playing movements. So he's constantly talking about playing a movement, not just playing scales, playing a movement. So that's another movement. Another one is, a lot of times you'll hear this. Now what that he talks about is this is all C7. Now when it gets to here, it's F6, F sharp diminished to C6. So that movement is. So if you're gonna play that, you should play those movements also. So one exercise that he used to have us do was something like, let's see. So let me do that one again. Let's see. So I'm just starting on the third of the C. Anyway, so that's again the first 4 bars, and that's this movement, which would be the 1 dominant to the 4 to the sharp 4 diminished, or that flat 3 diminished that he refers to sometimes too, and then back to the 1 again, but with the 5th in the bass. So that's another movement that he plays. Now we could do a few more on those. Let's see if we did starting from the 5th. So there it was. 1, 2, 3, and. So that's another movement that he uses, which is again the 1, 4, sharp 4 diminished, back to the 1 again. That's another movement. Another movement that happens in the blues sometimes is, let's see, the 1, and then like it's going to the relative minor. So you play the 7 to the 3 dominant to the 6, down a half step, then back to 1 dominant, then to the 4. So that happens too. So you have to be able to adapt to that change. So let's try that one. Anyway, that's one way to play it. Let's try another one. Oh, start again, sorry. That's another movement that he plays that we work on in class all the time. Another one is, there's one more. Oh, the one that I rarely play because I have to really work it out. But sometimes he plays the 3rd in the bass. Then when he gets to F7, he starts moving in 4ths. So he plays F7 to B flat 7. To E flat 7, to A flat 7, to D flat 7, to G flat 7, or in this instance F sharp 7, and then you back to F for the 5th bar. So it would sound like this. So, and then those are changes that you have to play on. So usually, I mean, I don't have that many of those together, but if I were going to play it, let's see, 1, 2, 1, 2. Anyway, but that's the idea behind those. So that was even another way to approach, and that's just the first 4 bars of the blues. So if you really see it, if you really start to look at those changes, just the very first one that we looked at, which was C7, then to F7, then to C7, and then to F sharp 7, I tell you honestly, I've been in class where Barry has gone over playing just C7, running it into F sharp 7. We can practice that for an hour. Just all the different pretty ways. So, you see, this is the thing that I think, in my opinion, that a lot of players are missing. And that is, a lot of people have different scales and they say, okay, you stack this scale on this chord, you stack this scale on that chord. But Barry plays movements, and not only does he play movements, but he gets the furthest in detail in those particular movements than I've ever seen anybody deal with. So I've never felt the need to study with anybody else, because just the things that he's shown me, I'll never get to all of them. There's so many different ways, and that's kind of why I wanted to share these videos, because I'm not the greatest player in the world, and there are a lot of other really good players. But just imagine if we all worked on these little movements, how good the music could be. We could really make it something special. Not that it isn't special, but we could even maybe propel it to the next level. Because the thing that Barry has done is he's laying it all out for us. It's just up to us to really work on and to try to get it together. So anyway, those are the different movements in the first 4 bars of the blues. Just to recap, it's the 1, then going to the 4, then the 1 again. Or the 1, going to the 4, going to the 1, then the tritone of the 1 dominant, which is the F sharp 7. And then we did the 1 to the 4 major to the 4 minor. Then we did the 1 to the 4 6, or the 4 major to the sharp 4 diminished, then back to the 1. And then we did the 1 going to the relative minor, which in this case would be A minor, and then playing 1 dominant again, which happens to. And then we did the one that's I find the hardest, which is the one where we start going in fourths. Anyway, those are all the different ways. I mean, I'm sure there are other ways. Please leave a comment underneath if you know of any other ways. I'm sure there are other ways too, but those are the ones just primarily to practice on. And when you start to think about practicing them, just each one of those, and then practice them in different keys that you play the blues in. C is a common one, but F is really common. B flat is common. So just think about all the different things you could work on with those different movements. And that's just the first 4 bars of the blues. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little example of the first 4 bars of the blues. And enjoy practicing them. And I'll see you next time for episode 8, which I'm not sure what we'll do yet, but we'll see. Anyway, thanks again. Enjoy.